Welcome into the Gaming Discourse. I am Tyler Frater alongside Richard D. the Cruz.
Hello.
And Chief Engineer Lieutenant Commander Connor Frater.
Good evening.
It is November 7th, 2022. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at the Gaming Discourse. Go to our YouTube channel, YouTube/Gaming Discourse. We post videos. The latest video is a review of Asterigos, the Curse of the Stars, developed by Acme Games. It's a very good game. I talked about it a little bit. I use both Souls Light and Souls Like because at some point I was just
2 for 2, baby.
I just didn't care. I was just like, you know what? I don't know which one it is.
It's a Souls game.
I can see why people want to call it a Souls Light because it's not like rigidly a Souls game, but whatever, it doesn't matter. It's pretty close to a Souls game. But it's a lot of fun. I recommend it. It's I think it was a surprise for me this year because I saw the demo of it. I played the demo during the Steam Next Fest, which is a great fest, by the way, that Steam started doing a few years ago. I've discovered a few games that I wanted to play that way. So I played the demo, and as soon as I played the demo, I was like, well, hell yeah, I want to review this. Ended up being really long. Ended up being like a 45-hour game. And
wow.
And there's a ton of stuff for
That's
New
chunky.
Game Plus. Yeah, there's a lot in there. Like I explained a couple weeks ago how the weapon systems work. So like the main character Hilda, she has 5 weapons you get from the beginning of the game. She always has them. You can have 2 of those weapons equipped at a time, right? And then each weapon has special abilities. So for an example, the dagger, one of the dagger's special ability is she sort of dashes and does a bunch of slashes around her. And then she ends up with a slash that it's one slash, but if you hit an enemy and they don't move, it hits them like 10 times. It's like a floating slash, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's one of the special abilities with the daggers. But you don't have to have the daggers equipped to be able to use that special ability. You can have like the hammer and the sword and shield, and then you press the buttons for the special ability, and she'll take out the daggers and do that move real quickly. So anyway, that makes it a lot of ground for New Game Plus because there are 5 weapons. I used every weapon a decent amount, but they're more than 75% of the special abilities I didn't unlock. So I could go back through New Game, and there is a New Game Plus, so I can go back through New Game Plus and check all that stuff out, and you can make the game harder and stuff. So that's, I think, to the game's benefit because I think on the normal difficulty it was a lot of fun. Boss fights took me a couple tries, stuff like that. But on a harder difficulty, it might be that added challenge may give the game like another dimension. So yeah, go check out that review. Would we like to talk about the games we've been playing? I've only been playing one. We're on the eve of God of War Ragnarok. That's the first time in 2 years I haven't said Thor Ragnarok when talking about God of War Ragnarok.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
But we're on the eve of that, so we're excited for that.
Wonderful.
So we'll talk about that next week. But games, Richard, you go first.
I've been playing 2 different games than what I've been playing recently. I started up because I was kind of wanting just something small to play. I started playing the Valis collection. Valis is a very old platformer series from the 80s, 90s for the TurboGrafx CD, and it's you play as a female protagonist who's. Why am I having a hard time trying to explain this damn game? She's just a schoolgirl in Japan.
Okay. Okay.
But so first, let me get into like the special things about this game because it was on TurboGrafx CD and Turbo CD. CD quality audio. You can do video now. There's cutscenes, everything. It starts off with a lot of cutscenes and actually tries to tell a story with this game, but as Japan loves its melodrama, and so there's a lot of things that happen for no reason, and they don't tell you those reasons until later. So of course she wakes up, is late for school, like cliche Japanese schoolgirls are, and on her way it starts raining out of nowhere. It was sunny and everything, it just starts raining out of nowhere, and she meets another one of her schoolmates who already, when the character appears on the screen, very antagonistic. Is very monotone and very dry when speaking to the main character, Valis. And she's basically like, hey, I'm not going to see you again today, but who knows? You might see me in the future. So count on that. Like basically just very villainously like, I'll see you later. Like she just leaves and she's like, oh, okay. Like, bye. Of course,
bye,
and then on your way, you know, you get transported to another world. You don't die or anything. It's not like you just get transported to another world. And so it turns out you are a phantasm soldier, they call them, and you're supposed to defeat, you know, the main villain who's you know, wreaking havoc on that world.
As Japanese schoolgirls are wont to do.
Yes. Yeah. No, it's very, very,
very common thing.
Very common thing. But so the gameplay is a platformer, but I was surprised to learn that it was kind of shooter-esque. So her main weapon is a sword. Her only weapon is a sword. Mm-hmm. But you do get applications to those swords, and they're in the form of like kind of like a squared arrow, like, you know, the signs that sign spinners hold. Yeah, they kind of look like that, and they'll have a letter on it. So it'd be like A, B, C, D, and so like there's H, and H stands for homing. So it's if I swing my sword, it shoots out two little things that home in on enemies.
That's fun.
So if I pick up C and I swing my sword, it'll shoot out like a beam of some sort. Okay. So I can hit enemies with my sword, but you can also
C for beam.
Yeah, right. You can also shoot out things. So it kind of becomes shooter-esque in that instance. The animation of the character for Valis is very impressive. For then, it has like more obviously frames of animation, so you can kind of like see how she runs, and it looks really good for something in the late 80s. But yeah, the melodrama is fun because like there's only 7 or 8 levels, and I got to like the 5th or 6th level, and you finally encounter the schoolgirl. She's one of the villains, of course. And it's just like, no, I don't want to fight you. You're my friend. And of course, Jesus. But you fight her and you kill her. Well, not kill her. You fight her, you defeat her. And then the friend is just like, why do you like me anyways? Like, what is this whole, and then it's like, yeah, well, your parents get along, mine don't, and I hate them for that, and I hate everybody for it, and this is why I'm mean to you, and you just, I guess you're still my friend, whatever.
Roller coaster.
So, right, and it's none of this information is revealed beforehand, like it's all just given out. So that's why, like, I hate it, but it's one of those things where I kind of just have to accept because that's just the way it is,
Sure.
the way it's always been, and so I kind of just look at it, well, that's Japan, that's the story, you know. So but the voice acting is really good and the animations are good and the cutscenes are very, very fun as well. But this series, there's been very few in America, and I think there's been 4 games before and it was critically and commercially successful like throughout its series until they sold off the rights like after the 4th game. And the new people who started making the Valis games ended up just, you know, making them into visual novel hentai territory. So now it's kind of gone through from this like, you know, side scroller game that was enjoyable to now it's just kind of this like amalgamous adult series. But I think they're trying to go back into the actual like side scroller stuff.
So that's an IP that's still around today then.
Yeah, not very much. I mean, that's why they just released these. They just released these collections on the Switch. So so it is something that I don't know if they're trying to like drum up popularity for it, but yeah, they've had releases here and there, mostly in Japan.
Do you know off the top of your head who was it that released the collection? Game? No. It's I wonder if it's a team that does a lot of like. I wonder if it's like what's the team that Frank Cifaldi and they did the Mega Man.
Not Digital Eclipse.
Horizon? No, Digital Eclipse.
It is Digital Eclipse. Yeah. So no, it has nothing to do with them because it's
but is it something? I was curious if it was something like that.
Ideaco. So there's a lot of companies now in conjunction with like Limited Run and East Asia Soft from PlayAsia that are releasing collections like this, but they're not necessarily
in it for the preservation.
Well, they are in it for the preservation, but it's like Valis came over here, but it's not necessarily meant to be for over here, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Because if they added subtitles to it because it was all in Japanese, and the subtitles are very, very barely laid on. So just very standard, typical text. overlaid onto everything else. So like UI gets in the way of like subtitles and stuff. It's kind of just so that like, so these people can enjoy it. It's not like something
Very much an afterthought.
Yeah,
An afterthought.
I wouldn't say it's something that was done with love, but it was done. Yeah, I mean, of course, with greed, but also, I mean, experience.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
So yeah, I was playing that. That's fun. And then I did start Bayonetta 3. And I was playing that. And playing that, I was hoping to beat it by God of War. Of course, I did not. So now I'll be juggling those two. But Bayonetta 3 continues to be one of the best in action games. And I think the only thing that it rivals is, I think Devil May Cry 5 still beats it as far as your abilities and the flow of the game. And Bayonetta 3 so far is incredibly enjoyable, especially for me as a big fan of the series.
How's the voice acting?
Good. The voice acting is actually really, yeah, no, I'm playing it and I'm like, I don't tell the difference because like I think last week I said it's just standard dominant British woman voice.
Yeah.
Like there are definitely times where I'm like, well, that doesn't quite sound like her, but most of the time it doesn't even sound like Jennifer Hale. Like it's Jennifer Hale, and it's like, oh, you sound like Bayonetta to me. The story so far is some of my favorite stories because I love how dumb they can be, but multiverse time travel.
Oh.
Yes. So it's like, hey, let's meet a ton of people or a ton of, in this instance, Bayonettas. Like you go to like other worlds where there are other Bayonettas and you meet them and stuff. So that's fun. That's fun so far. And I love going through the challenges. And there's a new type of mechanic that they have where Bayonetta, when she completes combos or when she kind of finishes off enemies, she summons her monsters or her familiars to like finish them off, and they're these giant kaiju-esque creatures. You can now call those creatures out at any point in time and control them on the map.
Oh, okay.
So if I hold the ZL, she'll summon one of like 3 characters that you have on the D-pad. And at first it's very weird to use because the camera doesn't quite catch up with the framing of where they are. So her like demon head that she calls out and is like biting things, I can't quite see it because the top of the screen kind of cuts off. So I'm not sure if I'm hitting the enemies or there's no feeling in the controller that I'm actually like doing any damage. So it gets kind of confusing a bit. But there were points where I was able to get into the flow of using my normal combos along with like towards the end of them calling out my monsters and taking care of huge swaths of enemies, which can be very satisfying at times. And there are some summons that you end up getting that are very ridiculous. And now they kind of combined weapons with creatures. So I've gained a weapon to where when I dash with that weapon, I turn into like a spider. Like a spider lady, or like when I use my normal weapons, I turn into like a butterfly lady, and so they have different types of
a lot going on.
Those. there is a lot going on, and it doesn't quite look as good as like Bayonetta 2, which is interesting because it's on theoretically stronger hardware, but at the same time, it's not something that I can point at and be like, ugh. Like that's not great because it's not like the main focus. The focus of Bayonetta isn't really to look good; it's to play well. But if I do think about locales I've seen in Bayonetta 1 and Bayonetta 2 compared to this one, I can definitely tell that they backed up as far as like what they did regarding the game.
Okay.
There's a new character introduced. Her name is Viola. And for me, she's probably the biggest downside of the game.
Oh, no.
Because once again, it's something that Japan loves to do. And it is create a character that has a certain aesthetic or style to them. And their personality does not match whatsoever with that style. So I'm not saying that if you have a certain style, you need to act a certain way.
Sure.
But it's going to sound bad. There is, stereotypes that go with. So Viola is like super punk rock, like Sex Pistols, and like,
Rose.
And so it's like, wow, she needs to be like hard, edgy, whatever. she is extremely social anxiety,
Okay.
fumbles her words, very accident prone,
Clumsy.
yeah,
Okay.
like things happen to her, and it's just weird
To see
and
somebody. Yeah, I can see that.
and her voice is, she has a deeper voice actress, but it's I feel like it's being forced, and so like all of it kind of clashes together, and she has provided so far some of the like worst moments in the game that I've experienced so far, of just like, and I'm not saying it's just like it ruins the game for me, but I fear it will be one of those when I play as her again, I'll be like, oh, all right, here we go, like let's do this. And I probably know why it is, but I can't say anything due to spoilers, but yeah, but I'm still enjoying the hell out of the game. It's very, very fun. But it is weird. God of War is not out yet, but Bayonetta 3 got a perfect 10 on Destructoid, but God of War got a 9 out of 10 on Destructoid.
Oh, no.
By the same person, and I'm kind of like, anyways, I don't know. I'm just with the problems I have with Bayonetta 3. I'm like, really? Is it a 10
Sure.
compared to? Anyways, that's it. Those are the two I've been playing.
Yeah, I think a couple people gave God of War perfect.
And not
10s.
just a couple, man.
Like variety. There was only a couple I saw.
Oh
but,
yeah.
Connor.
Yes.
So I've been playing U-Boat. Have you been playing anything besides Victoria 3 or U-Boat?
No.
Okay. so why don't you talk about Victoria 3?
Hey, all right.
Do your
next
best.
couple weeks. Well, when the 18th hits, so after next podcast,
Okay.
that's when Pokemon Scarlet and Violet come out. So I'll be playing.
Oh
those two.
yeah.
So there will be a change in games. Don't
So
worry.
try to give us like a, if you put the universe into a hot
into a tube.
Into a
The
tube.
universe would be twice as long as the tube.
give us that version of Victoria 3.
All right, so Victoria 3, it has a good foundation. There are parts of it that are really well constructed. The economic side, which is probably the most important part of this game because it's all about economies.
Sure.
It's
Industrial
ostensibly-
Revolution, right? Right around
Yeah,
there. Yep.
it's ostensibly a spreadsheet simulator.
Okay.
There have been forum posts where people have their screen set up, and it's Victoria 3 on one side, massive spreadsheets on the other. But there are a lot of parts of the game, specifically when dealing with other nations diplomatically and in war, that just fall apart. That really fall apart because the information isn't readily available. There's a lot of things that people have had to dig into the files to try to figure out. And once they've done that and posted it on to Reddit or the forums, a lot of stuff starts to make more sense. Specifically when it comes to combat, a lot of the information isn't given to the player. And it's a very hands-off approach when it comes to warfare. You just tell your generals, go here, and then they kind of take care of it from there. But there's very limited information from the fronts. It's kind of abstract how forces are deployed. For example, playing as Russia, one of the first situations you'll get put into is fighting against the Kazakhs, who you're slowly encroaching on their territory through colonization, so they fight against you. And so obviously you're going to deploy forces on that front because there's a war going on. And then you get into a situation like I had where a fight breaks out and your general, who has at his disposal 50 to 60 regiments, is fighting against a general that has 10 to 15 regiments, and two of your regiments show up and all of theirs show up. And it's like, why? What's going on? And if you hover over any of the information, none of it tells you
Why the general decided not to send.
why things are happening a certain way they are.
Okay, gotcha.
There's other smaller things like that it's just either the information isn't there or it's buried in tooltips within tooltips within tooltips that you have to filter through and find.
I respect Paradox a lot. I think they're super important. I would love to get into Hearts of Iron. But it does seem like every major title releases like this. Every single one comes out, it's mixed, but a year later, it's humming perfectly. It's great, and I do want I don't know. That would bother me if I was somebody like you, where I was super into Paradox games.
And a part of that is it's part of their philosophy is we're releasing the game on this date. We if we have to push it back, we'll push it back. But if it's nothing major that's like game breaking, we're gonna release the game.
Okay. And do you think there's anything in its game breaking?
No. There have been a couple bugs that I've run into where through mostly faults of my own, like trying to do too much at the same time, where the game just stutters and then crashes because it's trying to calculate too much. Stuff like that. But again, the game has a great foundation. There's a lot of it there that is good. A lot of the economic side is really good. Some of the information you get when working with other nations, it's pretty clear and straightforward. You see uptrends in your relationship with other countries just by doing trade deals with them and like forming customs unions and whatnot. And a lot of the information when it comes to economy is really straightforward. If you're looking at your GDP, there's 150 different tooltips within just the GDP one, which that's an exaggeration, of course, but that just break it down and make it easier to understand.
Oh, okay.
There are some things though, like when it says, how to increase the quality of life for your people so that they can move between the different economic strata to better themselves, is improve quality of life. It's like, all right, how do I do that? Well, just do it. How?
Sure. What series of clicks do I need to do
exactly
to get that going? Yeah, that's the same, and that's like that we tell the story with Hearts of Iron. It's like I tried playing a game. It was like you needed to come over. And it's like you had to crack the hood on a car and look at what I did wrong. And it says you had to come over to Hearts of Iron, open my game, and then look at what I was doing to figure out like what I did, where did I click to something wrong, because there's a lot in. But I'd love to get into them one day.
There is one thing that I figured out really quick with Victoria 3 is I am really good at crashing economies.
I think a lot of people would, yeah.
When you're learning
something humanity.
When you're learning the game, when you're first trying it out, don't worry if you go into the millions of dollars in negative on your budget, because you'll bounce back eventually. I was when I was playing as Russia, I was doing a bunch of construction projects. And I wasn't paying attention to my debt. And I looked up at it and I was pushing upwards of $111 million in debt.
Wow, okay.
In the 1840s. I'm like, ooh, that's a bit spicy.
Sure, okay. So let's talk about U-Boat.
All right.
So U-Boat, the U-Boat simulator. You're a German U-Boat. You play across World War II. You can start in 1939, you go to the end of the war in 1945. This is a game that's been in early access for a long time, but it's getting close to full release, I think.
I believe so, yeah. I've seen it posted a few times.
And I've wanted to play it for a long time, but I've put some hours into it. I really enjoy it, but it has a lot of the same problems that a lot of good simulators like this have. And I think part of the reason why games like this have these kinds of problems is because they're made by smaller developers who are taking on a really big, ambitious thing. So it is a U-boat simulator, and it's not 1,000% accurate, I'm sure, but there is a lot going on when you take a U-boat out and you go on missions. So I think structurally the campaign is really good. You get a mission, okay, you plot a course, you can speed up time, and then you go out there, you do your mission, and then you can click. So like the structure of how missions are completed and stuff, I think is perfect. But then it's a bunch of little tiny things that gets really complicated. So like I'll go through explaining how the U-boat and the game works. So a Type Victor 2 Charlie, the Type 7 Charlie U-boat, right? I think that's what it is. In World War II, it had diesel and electric engines, right?
Oh, wow.
Which both do different things. The electric engines you run when you're submerged because diesel produces smoke. So you switch to the diesel engines when you're on the surface, but the diesel engines go faster. I think water resistance may matter there too, because you're not surrounded by water.
Yeah, if you're on the surface.
I don't know. I think pressure may slow you down. I don't know about that.
Yeah. If you're surface and you switch to electric, you do go slower than your diesel engines, but faster than when you're submerged.
Yeah, and I think electric may be quieter. I don't know.
Tiny bit.
Yeah, tiny bit. So anyway, so you have two different engines. You have compressors, which compress air. Where does it compress air
So
into?
it compresses air into ballast tanks.
Into ballast. Now, the ballast tanks are what raise and lower the ship. It's what counterbalances the
buoyancy
of the U-boat, right?
Got it.
And you have two different kinds of these things that you have to manage, okay? Now, your ship has air that's recycled, like an airplane, right? So when you are on the surface, it's fine because you're just getting...
You have a hatch open and the air naturally ventilates through.
Right?
Yeah.
So, but when you are submerged, you're recycling oxygen, okay? So obviously you can only be submerged for so long. Now, let's say you decide, hey, I'm going to run one of these compressors because I need more oxygen in my ballast tanks to surface, right? So let's say you decide, I'm going to run both of these compressors. But what you don't know, because you haven't been playing the game for that long, is that the air that those compressors use to go into the ballast tanks is being taken out of the cabin, and you're too dumb.
Well, that's also...
So anyway, I'm just trying to get...
You should have been able to figure that out.
Yes, I'm making my way... and it's fine. I'm making my way to the point that it is a complicated simulator.
It is very, yes.
And there's tons of little tiny buttons that do little tiny things with the boat. And then you have your crew, and your crew is all managed as well. You have to I didn't know this. You schedule shifts for when your crew is doing certain things because they're sleeping. Because you're out on days,
they gotta rest.
So they're sleeping. They have different shifts for when they do things. You level them up, and they have different skills that kind of contour what their job is. So, there are two roles. There's a chief engineer and an engineer.
A mechanic and an engineer.
And they're similar, but they're different. And they have similar skills that you when you level them up, you just pick one.
So for the mechanic and engineer, their skill set or their skill tree is the same. It's just one starts on one end, the other starts on the other.
It's like XCOM. Every soldier has their own little abilities, right? And I assume if somebody dies, they're donezo.
Yes.
Yeah, and in U-boat. So anyway, so you have the whole crew to manage, right? And you've got a U-boat to manage. And then you can turn up the difficulty, and you'll have to tell me more about it.
Because Tyler, the way he's describing it, he's playing on 45% realism.
Yeah. But you can turn up the difficulty to where you are navigating realistically, and you have to calculate torpedo speed, distance, and all that realistically, which means you're compensating for the trajectory and the speed of the boat, your target,
the speed you're going, the speed of the torpedo, the angle on the bow, because some torpedoes
will be able to curve and some can't, right?
Yeah. But the impact angle is important for impact torpedoes, because if they hit too shallow, they'll skid off.
Yeah.
They hit too shallow or steep, they'll skid off. You have to hit it at a specific angle, and we're getting into the really nitty-gritty parts now. The triggering mechanism, which is called the pistol, that the Nazis were using, had some inherent flaws in it. And it wasn't like you wanted to be 90 degrees on. You didn't want to be 90 degrees on. Sure. You wanted to be between, I think it was 46 and 72 degrees in that angle to get the optimal triggering.
Yeah. So there's a lot of...
Or you can go with the magnetic triggering and try to shoot your torpedoes underneath the ship and have it trigger underneath, which is the optimal way of doing it. Because then you create a cavity underneath the ship and it crumbles under its own weight.
So there's a lot... So it's a simulator. So there's a lot going on. It's really impressive.
And we haven't even gotten to the part where you can turn on realistic curvature of the Earth.
Yeah, which makes
you can turn that off.
So with all that said, right? With how amazing this simulator is, and how awesome it is that you contour your crew and you know, there's a lot of cool stuff. Problems are like little things. Like, for example, my guy, Michael Nod is his name.
Mm-hmm.
Good old Michael Nod. He's my mechanic that works on the torpedoes.
Mm-hmm.
All he does is torpedo maintenance, just cleaning those torpedoes, right? Okay. Well, cleaning the torpedoes generates a lot of noise. It's like a rock concert, apparently, right? And he will not stop doing it unless I tell him to stop doing it specifically. You can set settings where you tell the ship to be quiet. So you see a destroyer. Okay, we're going to hide. We go underwater. We shut everything off. We're sitting there. Michael Nod will keep cleaning those torpedoes, which is really loud. And if that destroyer decides we're going to do a quick sonar ping, they will detect us. And so, like, I have died because I couldn't figure out. I'm sitting there watching Michael Nod clean torpedoes, and I'm like, how do I get you to stop doing this? You're going to kill us. And in real life, it would be, hey, Mike, can you give us a second? But like in this game, you can do it, but like there's like a menu you have to go to, which is kind of weird to get to.
There's a really easy way.
Yeah, but it's not really it's not taught.
There's a really easy way, and it's really stupid of how to keep him from like doing the torpedoes at an inopportune time. Send him to bed.
Yeah, you
click the bed icon and he will just go to sleep instead of doing his job.
So it's like it's a really cool game, but there's a lot of little tiny things like that where you just have to learn it. You just have to remember the button sequences, the clicks in order to do. There was one time where I sent my dudes into port, right? Okay. So I was like, okay, guys, go to this port over here. There's no enemies. It's friendly territory. Go to this port. So I, whatever, did the course. I hit the forward time button because it goes at real time. So it's like times 6,400 speed. So they're going. And instead of slowing down and going into port, my submarine just...
And that's what I was telling you last night. It's because you just tell them to go full tilt. They won't slow down unless you tell them
to. Which is kind of funny. My submarine decides, bat out of hell, they're going to ram straight into the dock. Like they're Ace Ventura. Like a glove.
This is why when you're in port waters, before you leave the wave breaks, you're on engine speed 1.
Yeah.
Or 2.
Sure,
you don't go above engine speed 2.
I'm a maverick, okay? That's how I run my crew.
Well, I run a more efficient boat than you do.
Yeah, well, I don't care. Anyway, so that's U-Boat. I'm going to play some more of it.
Sounds fun and stressful.
I like it. I think I like it more than Cold Waters.
Oh my God.
Cold Waters,
you say stressful. The game knows how to ratchet tension up.
And your crew has stress. So your crew will get stressed out and you have to manage that too.
Maybe I think it's my personality, but I'd rather not deal with the stress. So like that's probably why for a long time, I don't know, the idea of doing something for so long, and if you screw up, it's all over, start again. Like I just can't.
Iron Man mode.
No, you're right. It's really cool. And it's really awesome that there are folks who can do that. But man, I'm just like, nah.
Yeah, you can save your game. I'm playing it where if I, like, for example, when Mike kept cleaning torpedoes and we got detected because he wouldn't shut up, I was like, no. I'm going to figure out how to stop you from doing that, and then I'm going to load a previous save. I'm not going to die because I didn't know a button sequence. But if I make a mistake, if I miss a shot, if I see a destroyer and I take a chance and the destroyer detects me, like, I will accept those because those are decisions and mistakes I made. Those are like fair ones. But if it's like the button is hidden in a weird menu that you have to press a couple other buttons to open up, it's like, okay, no. That's a game design thing. I'm giving myself a mulligan, I'm
going to back up real quick and talk about because Bayonetta, that's something I forgot to mention about Bayonetta is that they are not clear on what you can and can't do with some things, or their directions are not clear. Like there are time puzzles where you have to reverse or move forward time. And so there, the first one is like this bowling alley that has to get put back together. And so I'm here thinking the way they explain it, it made me think that, I have to put it back together the way it was, and then everything is fine. You put it back together, and then you let it go, and you have to do something with it. You have to get up, and I did it 2 or 3 times, and I was like, what am I doing wrong? Like, what's going on? And then I realized, no, you have to move it forward to get to a certain point where the rubble creates a pathway for you to jump up and get the thing.
Oh, okay.
It's like, oh, okay, you guys didn't tell me like that. And then there was like the second one, there's a huge bridge that gets fixed. And there's not enough time for me to, because there's a huge space and water there, and then a bridge, there's no time for me to get all around and get to that bridge. Turns out you can walk on water, and they don't tell you that.
Oh, really?
And so it's like, oh, I could just fucking and it's like, oh, okay, thanks, you know? So there's just weird things and mechanics that they kind of go, all right, do it. And it's, well, you didn't really tell me what I can and can't do and how it, like, so.
Sure.
So I know how that feels when it's like,
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. I understand.
So it's a game design thing. You know?
Yeah. Anyway, but there's it's a cool historical simulator, and I'm a sucker for historical simulators. You can zoom out and you see a map of the Earth, and you see as time goes on, like for Germany invaded Poland, so there was like attack. It's like a land map, and you see like arrows. Like Germany's invading Poland, and the USSR was invading Poland at 1.2. And then a few days will go by, you go back to the map and you look, and it's Poland under Germany. So like the map changes as time progresses, and it's really cool to see that happen. So it's a neat little historical simulator and stuff like that to see go on. But yeah, I'm excited to play it more and because as a U-boat, you're kind of a glass cannon in a way.
Oh, 100%.
Because if you're detected, it's just you can't fight back. You hide and run because you're just no match. But some of the best moments in Cold Waters and U-boat are the stealthy ambushes and stuff like that. Now, in this game, it's easier to get away from enemies because it's 1940. In Cold Waters, it's like the Russian submarine 10 miles away launches a torpedo. For the next hour and a half, you're dodging this torpedo because this torpedo is just like, it's just on you the whole time. But anyway.
At the same time, if you get caught out by a destroyer and corvettes, then they will just drop depth charges for the next 40 square miles.
Like they're vultures, and it's very terrifying, yeah. Okay, let's hit the ad. Let's get to the news. Thanks for listening. If you like our content, please consider subscribing or leaving a like and comment. You can find us at patreon.com/thegamingdiscourse. And our tiers are $2, $4, $7, and $10 and include getting your name in the video credits, early access, and access to our Discord server. I just thought of this because a co-op version of U-boat would be not like Iron Wolf, which is a similar game, but Iron Wolf, you're on the same submarine, but like two different submarines, and you have to coordinate things. That'd be incredible.
We were talking about that last night.
Yeah, we were talking about that last night. Anyway,
you didn't just think of this.
IKEA. Well, I just thought don't. IKEA claims copyright over indie horror game. Developer Ziggy, whose real name is Jacob Shaw, is making The Store Is Closed, which is a survival co-op horror game that is nearing the end of a successful Kickstarter campaign. The game clearly uses IKEA as an inspiration. There are blue and yellow colors. The main menu has a store that looks very much like IKEA, but it's called Store, I think spelled STRE, right? And the layout and the aesthetics of like the enemy's clothing looks very much like IKEA aesthetics. Last week, Ziggy was sent a cease and desist by Frost Zelnick, IKEA's New York lawyers, demanding the dev change the game and remove all indicia associated with IKEA. Speaking to Kotaku, IKEA UK said, quote, "While we think it's flattering that others are inspired by the IKEA brand, we must be diligent to ensure that IKEA trademarks and trade dress are not misapplied. Various elements of the video game currently correspond in appearance with the IKEA brand features. We've reached out to the creator of the video and asked them, video game, I assume, and asked them to make changes to those elements to ensure that this is no longer the case," end quote. They put video there. I think they probably just meant video game. Shaw told Kotaku he is seeking legal advice, but is certain he'll have to change the game in order not to be sued. Do you remember Pray to the Gods?
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you remember how Pray to the Gods had to change their name?
Yeah.
Because it was
Bethesda
too similar
was
to
dumb.
Prey.
Yeah.
This kind of stuff, I don't know. This kind of Connor and I, we sort of debate copyright sometimes. Connor's a little more
don't do it.
Yeah, and I'm a little more of like
What's the worst that can happen?
I'm a little more of the rebellious. Say, what's copyright? Anyway. But this is not like, come on, this is ridiculous. This is dumb. This really bothers me. I hate when developers are forced to do things like this. And I don't know, by the letter of the law, maybe I'm sure they're fine by the letter of the law. But by the spirit of the law, is this really a copyright infringement?
I don't think so.
I don't think so. Like, I don't understand how TV shows and stuff can get away with doing things that they do. Like, South Park can get away with crazy stuff when it comes to, like, they literally have Mickey Mouse, So I don't know. I'm not an expert on copyright law, but I didn't want to not talk about this story because it really bothers me.
Isn't it? Doesn't this fall under parody?
I'm not going to, we're not lawyers.
Okay.
But we can speculate.
I mean, it's obviously not IKEA. Like it's sure it has themes, but like, for instance, like Five Nights at Freddy's should have got canned for Chuck E. Cheese. Yeah. But also at the same vein, what Five Nights at Freddy's does, Chuck E. Cheese does not do anymore. And they're not going to again. They're not going to, put animatronics back in their stores again. So that's probably why they're in the clear on that. But I'm not a lawyer, but I mean, if this is obviously not damaging to the brand in any sort of way,
that's what you would think.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's what I would think.
And that's why I think it's to the spirit of the law. The other thing is, I haven't played the game. I looked through, I read a little bit about it. It seems like a satire. The enemies that come after you, they are called the managers. So it's like, come on. It's an infinite. I think the game is supposed to be like procedurally generated. So there's just rooms and rooms and rooms of furniture and stuff like that. So it comes across like a satire, right? Like the horror of working at a big box store, that kind of thing. The horror of retail, the scale of consumerism, that kind of stuff. But again, I haven't played the game. But anyway, and I feel like that's a legitimate. That's like a legitimate theme. That's like an actual talkable theme. It's not just using the aesthetics. It's sort of commenting on the aesthetics,
Yeah.
So I'm not but if Ziggy, instead of being a smaller developer, and I think it's just a lone developer, if they were Bethesda, would this happen? Like, I don't know.
No,
what was the thing with Monster? What did Monster? Oh no, it may have happened because not the Phoenix Rise from the Ashes game.
Oh, right. Gods and Monsters.
Because that used to be Gods and Monsters.
Yeah.
And I think it was Monster Energy that didn't like that.
Right.
So this kind of copyright shit or Brandon, whatever the rule is.
Yeah.
It's just silly.
Well,
and I don't know why it applies to certain situations, but then you see similar things all over the place, like your example of Five Nights at Freddy's, and it's crickets.
Yeah.
And I don't, and maybe it's just because the company doesn't care. I don't know, but it bothers me. And to reiterate one more point, I think it's just important to talk about because this is a lone developer. If this is a developer with a little more punch, maybe there'd be a fight here. But it's a big company bullying an indie developer who's making something on Kickstarter. Which is part two of why it's so bothersome.
Which definitely sucks. It is that when you start talking about the Monster Energy drink, it is the Pray for the Gods thing and the Monster. Those are stupid because those are just words.
Yeah.
Which are just like
sure. Yeah, that's a good point.
In broad different ways.
Yeah.
And that's ridiculous. Like, it is very stupid. IKEA is the one thing. No one else does what IKEA like. IKEA is its own thing in its own like stratosphere, and so I do feel that they probably have more of a reason to be like, "Hey, could you not?" Than like Monster or
that's
Bethesda
a good point.
does. Also Scrolls. Bethesda did Scrolls for Mojang because they were making a game called Scrolls, and they're like,
really?
"No," because Elder Scrolls. Yeah.
I hate that shit so much.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I couldn't imagine spending my life being that kind, like going through law school, and then that's what you.
But you get paid the big bucks for that.
I guess if that's
it's stupid, but
if that's what you want.
They're driving around a Maserati.
Connor,
but real quick on point of edging on the side of parody and satire when it comes to copyright and trademark laws. No law is clear cut, black and white. There are 800 asterisks applied to every law.
Yeah.
So even if it's parody, there's more to it than just it's parody. There's different types of Creative Commons licensing for music and other art. It's not just Creative Commons. It's open for the people to use. There are layers.
Yeah.
So
here comes Connor being a narc.
fuck you.
I'm kidding. Sorry.
He has to read the next news. You're going to treat him like that, and he has to read the next news.
Connor, tell us about the PS5 VR.
PSVR 2 will not be available to Tyler. This is the news. He is the only person on the world banned from getting it.
His trophies are erased.
No, the PSVR 2 will be $550. This coming from Axios. It makes it more expensive than the PlayStation 5, which is $500 with the CD tray or $400 for pure digital. So PSVR 2, 1, not backwards compatible. 2, expensive as hell. 3, more expensive than the actual console it's assigned to.
Yeah, the console itself. You weren't here when we talked about PSVR 2 not being backwards compatible.
I'm hearing different things.
Are you?
Yeah. I'm hearing that it is not innately backwards compatible, but the people who made the games have the option to add an update.
Okay, see that's weird because
that is weird. Yeah,
because they said in their official PlayStation podcast,
that it was not
it was, and they said pretty definitively, and then they even gave a really vague answer. So if that's the case, that changes a lot. But I didn't hear. I haven't heard that. If that's the truth,
it's not backwards compatible. The developers just need to update their games to work on the new software.
That would be strange. But I mean, technically, that would still be backwards compatibility, wouldn't
sideways compatibility.
Because that's the same with the Xbox One. The Xbox One games had to be like, I forget exactly what they had to do, but it was backwards. But no one said that was backwards compatibility, and they added games to it as time went on. So. That's a really weird way to, because why say it's not backwards compatible if it is with an update? I would think the message you want to put out there is it is backwards compatible with updates, which we'll be working on in the future and get more games to people that play PlayStation VR to have a wide variety of titles.
I think the distinction there is if you say it's backwards compatible, people will assume, oh, I can just grab any old game. Even if you say with updates, people are going to assume, oh, I can grab any old PSVR game and it's going to work on the PSVR 2.
Yeah.
Because people are stupid.
But I would rather do that. I would rather do the messaging where you just say what it is instead of cutting off the entire thing and saying it's not backwards compatible. And then Richard has to bring a fact to the podcast.
I'm not. It's just like there's a report on like PlayStation Lifestyle where apparently a report is a lot of devs from insiders. A lot of devs are working on PSVR 2 versions of PSVR 1 games.
Okay.
Which, if that's the instance, they could just offer the PSVR 2 version
for
free,
like a free digital upgrade.
Yeah,
or something.
which I mean, essentially is not backwards compatibility, but that's the next best thing.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. But anyway, so let's assume that there isn't a backwards compatible thing. Did you have a take on that? Did you have a Richard take
for what?
For not being backwards compatible?
I think it's a.
That made me somewhat disappointed.
Yeah, no, it's a very disappointing. Yeah, very disappointing because there are still very good experiences from 4 or 5 years ago that would be wonderful to introduce to folks at a lower price point for PSVR 2, and it would also help to bolster your launch titles. Yes. You know, but. I think the next, if it isn't innately backwards compatible, the next best thing is PSVR 2 upgrades. The good thing about that, I think, is that most PSVR games are digital. They aren't physical.
Yeah.
So if they are working on a PSVR 2 upgrade for certain games and they allow a free upgrade, then cool, no need to worry about it. But
yeah. The price. What do you think about the price? Because the price, I think, is interesting here.
It was $50 more than I expected. I expected max $500, or at least that's what I was thinking. I've already talked about this with several friends, and I put it this way. I can probably explain to you why it's $550, but it still sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, like it is a bit ridiculous that it's $50 more than a PS5. However, if you want a good VR experience, most VR headsets are about that price. We're looking at the HTC Vive. We're looking at the HP Reverb 2. Index, $600. If you even want it to work, it's $1,000.
Yeah.
So, this isn't the Quest 2. The Quest 2 is able to have its price because it's running on Android.
And even that got a price.
Yeah, and even that got a price increase.
Jack, yeah.
So this is kind of aiming towards that, like you want an actual good VR experience. Not that the Quest isn't a good VR experience. It is, it really is. But this is definitely for those with a little more of a hardcore palette. But
yeah, that makes me wonder. That the price does make me wonder if that's going to set it at a huge disadvantage from the get-go, because you have two hurdles right now.
Yeah.
If you want to play PSVR 2, one, you got to have a PS5, which is still difficult. And then once you get that PS5, then you got to go get a PSVR 2, which there are people signing up for pre-orders and stuff like that. So I don't know how easy or difficult it is going to be to get a PSVR 2. But there's two hurdles you have to get there. And then once you get the PSVR 2, then it becomes, all right, now I need the games. Now I need, titles and stuff like that. And we talk about, if you're a PlayStation owner and you want to try out VR, and it's like, well, you can get the Quest and you can have sort of the separate console, or you can get a game that works with your PlayStation. And the difference there is going to be library, I think, essentially, because there's not a ton of games I think that are on both systems, although I'm sure there are some. But with this huge price jump, now I do wonder if that makes the Quest 2 any more appealing, even though the Quest 2 also had a price jump, any more appealing for people that have a PlayStation, if it changes that thought process at all, where if you have a PlayStation, the PSVR was the easy choice. But now with the price being where it is, PS5s being where they are, if that makes the Quest 2 a juicier option for somebody who wants to try a VR headset. Yeah. That's
I think that there's two things that I would like to see, or one thing that I would like to see and one thing that I would hope that Sony is thinking about. First thing being is that I hope Sony is thinking that they understand that the price is a little high, so they're not going to make as many to kind of be okay. Like, their expectations are set. Like, I hope they don't expect, X million number, because I think the PSVR sold over 4 million.
I mean, it sold really well.
Which I do think is good. However, that is over 120 million PS4s sold, only 4 million PSVRs. That's not a great, but it's still not bad either, considering that only so many people are into VR. Secondly, it is a one cable use to the USB-C
I always
port.
forget about that, yeah.
Which is not great. However, I think that might be easier for PC users to crack that headset.
Figure out how to emulate it and stuff like that.
And if you're able to crack that headset for use on PC, I think that would be a pretty interesting buy for the PC users.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you there. The only issue... Yeah,
because at the end of the day, that's a sale for Sony.
Yeah, but the only issues there are that if you are somebody who has a PC and you're looking in to get a VR headset. I don't know the stats off the top of my head. I'm going to assume it probably has visuals just as good, if not better, than the Quest 2. But that's a total assumption. I don't know for sure. But if you do have a PC and you're looking to get a VR headset, and there is a crack out there for the PSVR 2. Then your choices are between a Quest 2, which will work with a link cable, or even the wireless thing if need be, or you go with the PSVR 2 and you decide to work on it, because that's going to be a bit of a job to figure out how to emulate it and all that stuff.
This is PC users we're talking about. They'll work on it.
Yeah,
they'll mod it.
But you have to be somebody who's willing to do that. And so, how big is that market? I don't know. It would be great if Sony did that on their own.
Yeah, it would be.
I don't know if that's technically possible. But if Sony came out next month and was like, "Hey, by the way, we're going to enable PSVR 2 to work on PC. And by the way, we're bringing PlayStation PC games or PlayStation VR games to the PC up on Steam right now. That'd be huge. That would put them in competition with PC VR. That would make, I think, more enticing for people that own PS5s. And I think that could cut into the Quest 2. There you go, Jim Ryan. Just an old tip from old Uncle Tyler.
Doing your work for you.
Yeah. But again, I don't know if that's technologically possible. I have no idea because I don't know what goes into making a VR headset for PC. Connor, were you gonna?
Yes.
Okay,
So one thing
you had the Connor talk face.
So one thing for me at least with the $550 price point is since it's as expensive as a console, expectations from me are Sony better be pushing out more either VR exclusive or VR compatible games.
Yeah.
Because if it is,
Right.
if it's $550 and they hope that third-party developers really want to get it on PSVR, then it's just going to be a waste.
Mm-hmm.
And with consoles, you're selling at a loss. And if you're selling the $500 PS5 at a loss, you're probably selling the $550 PSVR 2 at a loss.
Yeah.
And how do you get that back? With
Games.
apps.
Yeah.
And what's a good way to get even more back with those apps? If you put it on PC. I'm telling you, that's what they got to do.
Yeah.
Again, I don't know if it's possible.
PC, it's the way of the future.
Richard, our last Bayonetta update ever.
Yeah, I hope so. Helena Taylor has asked fans to donate to various groups, including anti-abortion groups. For a bit of background, Helena Taylor was the original voice actress for Bayonetta, who did not continue her job for Bayonetta 3.
Sure.
She said she was offered a low amount to voice Bayonetta in Bayonetta 3 and also called for a boycott. It turns out she was kind of lying or, just plain forgot to give certain details.
Fumbled the information.
Yeah, right. After the fallout, she tweeted various groups to donate money to, which she said she had donated money in the past to, including animal shelters, humanitarian organizations, Landmine Clearance, and Billboards for Life, a Kentucky-based anti-abortion organization that posts pro-life billboards.
I'm going to save you here because this last line I added in. It's not going to make a whole lot of context to you. I checked out their website and they have they link to another website that's got conspiracy theory stories about stuff that I don't even want to mention. Election conspiracy theory stuff, Brazil's election conspiracy theory stuff. So, way out there. So it just, it's a couple clicks away from a, QAnon infestation. Okay. So,
Classic.
So has there ever been a more, I don't know, it just I don't know. I just want to laugh at it. Okay. But before we laugh at it,
I'm already laughing.
Voice actors probably aren't paid enough. I think it's probably important to say that. They're probably not treated well. And that goes for every single person in the industry, from a first-year QA tester to Mark Dara, to somebody who's been directing games for 10 years or whatever.
Yep.
Probably could all be paid better, probably could all be treated better, work conditions could probably be better. So all that stuff across the board. However, come on.
Yeah, when this all hit, when the first video of hers hit, and then we kind of found out a couple days later the actual amount she was given, people then started coming out with did you see who she likes, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to say anything because
course.
it's no, we don't want to, but of course then we get actual articles with research. And so, yeah, it's, sucks.
Yeah.
Sucks. But it is very interesting that this person is kind of, in the matter of a week and a half, gained tons of goodwill and then completely erased it through specific decisions they made.
And I noticed, so if a story comes out about somebody, developer, whatever, and they have a public facing social media account, I will scroll through that real quick. I think it's just a bit of background. It's okay, who is, and if I see stuff that I disagree with, that's fine. It depends on what the context is. And the context with Helena Taylor was she's not paid well enough initially, and obviously at the time we were this is weird because Jennifer Hale is unionized, so it's she has to be making more anyway. And I scrolled through and I saw she has a picture of, that famous Freddie Mercury strike pose of him in the yellow jacket.
Yeah.
Freddie Mercury, famously gay. But instead of it being Freddie Mercury, it's the Queen of England who is in that pose. Now, knowing England's history with how they treated gay people. That seems like a weird combination to make because it's there, they a little like how gay people have been treated in the United States. Not great. Alan Turing, the only reason that we play games right now is gay. You look at his life, it wasn't great, even though World War II and computers, he did that for us. He won us those things.
Yeah.
He's a great man, hero. Didn't end well because of some really archaic and horrible laws in England. Anyway, so you combine those two things, and I was like, oh, that's a really like odd image to have on your Twitter account. And at the time, I was like, but okay, whatever. We'll just sweep that under the rug because it's not important. What's important is she needs to be paid. And then this comes out, and I'm like, maybe there was a little something more to that image that's supposed to be Freddie Mercury.
Should have did some more digging.
Yeah, should have done a little more thinking about that image. Anyway, I don't know if you've seen that image, but it's just one of those things that you notice it and you're like, maybe I should have. What was I supposed to do? She
reported to the police.
She's still, for being poor, being a horrible taste, right?
Reported to the fashion police.
Is there anything else we'd like to say before we get to...
I'm done with Helena.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Do you think, what do you think happens if a game is announced and she's in it? Do you think, is that a story? Do you think that's...
I think that'll be a blip.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it'll be a blip, yeah.
You'd be surprised at how... I don't know. I don't think she should... Maybe she should... I don't know what I would do.
Well, also, I mean, if you... This is also something I didn't, but if you look at her, she does not do voice work. She's a theater person. So, I mean, Bayonetta is one of her few voice works, and she hasn't done voice work in a while. So, I mean, it's not like...
Sure.
And the majority of the voice work she's done is like guard number 5 or additional voices. It's all like background stuff.
Side stuff. Okay. There's something popped in my head, but I lost it. So I think we're ready for tidbits. A man discusses the news, but not like the big news, the little news. Little bit. This is the tidbits.
These aren't just the tidbits, these are the old bits. EA is working on 3 new Marvel games. EA has announced that along with the new Iron Man game that they're working on, that was announced weeks back, they also struck a deal with Disney and Marvel for 2 more games. Earlier this summer, it was rumored that a Black Panther game different from the Captain America Black Panther game that we're getting from Skydance was in development at EA. There's no word on what is going on with that game, if anything. If only they could have done this with Star Wars.
I was about to say.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. I don't. I'm working on a video right now
How dare you.
I know I'm a horrible person about just some things that video game executives have said that's bothered me. But one thing that's interesting is, so we like horror games. I don't know. 7 years ago, you had a couple of Resident Evils, and other than that, on the AAA scene, it was nothing, right?
Oh, sure, yeah.
But now we're getting all kinds of stuff. Silent Hill's being revived. We have a ton of Resident Evils just all over the place. A VR Resident Evil, that's incredible. Dead Space remake. I'm sure there's probably a couple
Callisto
other things.
Protocol.
Yeah. So there's this resurgence of horror, and I think so that must be I don't know, not a capitulation, but because those games are not going to sell. Well, they may sell really well now, but they may not sell as well as like, a Madden or a Modern Warfare. They're not. And I think that a similar thing happened with like Jedi Fallen Order and stuff like that, is you have these games that these companies kind of want to steer away from. They do well, and it seems that they're steering sort of more in that direction. I don't know. I think the industry maybe I don't know. What am I trying to say? I don't want to say shifting, because it's not like they're really changing course, but maybe taking advantage of creative endeavors that they could have taken advantage of a long time ago, like Star Wars, but decided not to drop the ball on. And it's still too bad. Anyway, Connor, you were...
Don't you know, Tyler, that gamers don't want to play single-player samurai cowboy horror Star Wars games?
Richard, what's the next tidbit?
Real quick, horror is in because of Twitch. by the way.
Yeah.
Do you think that's it?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a big part of it.
That's a major reason lots of streamers get plenty of views because they play scary games.
Because they pretend to scream. I mean, because they get scared.
Yeah. And people love to see people get scared.
Sure.
Like they do. Look at all the goddamn haunted houses we have.
Everybody would hate me if I streamed horror games. I pride myself in like being steely. I look like Randy Marsh. Yeah. Exactly. Like something terrifying will happen, and you'll ask me, "Did that scare you?" I'll be, "Oh yeah, it scared me half to death. You didn't even move." Oh yeah, but I was terrified. Anyway,
Halfway in.
Comment section, Tyler, you're bald. I know.
smoking dope right in front of a cop. Anyway, go.
Sonic the Hedgehog has hit a major milestone. Ahead of the release of Sonic Frontiers, Sega has released some numbers relating to Sonic the Hedgehog. Sega Sammy Holdings, which is the full name of Sega, anyways, has confirmed that the Sonic the Hedgehog series has now sold over 1.51 billion copies of games through paid and free-to-play games offered. That number might be a bit of an inflated due to the free-to-play nature of some of those titles, because you could just hit install and it's like, that counts.
That counts as a, yeah.
But regardless, impressive milestone for a legend in the gaming universe.
I wonder what game has sold the most copies. What game franchise? Maybe
Minecraft.
Minecraft? Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Like more than even...
It's the best-selling game of all time, yeah.
Like in units. And I'm talking entire franchise. So even like the entire Mario franchise, every Mario game. We don't have to Google this. It was just a thought experiment. It was like, how many windows are in New York? That kind of thing, you know, like...
7.
Okay, well, that's a bad estimation. I would not hire you.
Of course, it's Mario.
Yeah, I would have to say it.
Yeah.
Had to be Mario. Yeah, okay. Anyway, next tidbit. Sorry.
Hold on, I want to know.
Okay.
Tetris
I'm going to break into
500
talking about football if we don't get an answer here quick.
Tetris has sold 520 million copies.
Here it comes.
All right.
I'm talking LSU, Alabama right now. No? Okay,
last tidbit. Bittersweet one, but of course, legend in the gaming world has passed away. Over in the last 2 weeks, the Sega Mega Drive Mini 2 released, and fans are digging through it, coming over all the secrets and goodies in the mini console. However, user Nick Thorpe over on Twitter noted that in the credits, a dedication to Reiko Kodama can be seen at the end. A fan reached out to Yosuke Okunari, who is the creative producer over at Sega, to ask if this means what everyone thought. His response was, quote, "As you understand it, we respected her." Reiko Kodama is considered the mother of JRPGs. She was hired by Sega in 1984 and soon learned how to create graphics from Yoshiki Kawasaki. She became a character designer for the arcade game Champion Boxing, and she worked on Sega Ninja and created art for Alex Kidd, Fantasy Zone 2, and Miracle Warriors for the Master System. She was always credited as Phoenix Rie, as Sega did not allow devs to replace their real names in the credits of their games in the 80s. But Kodama became the main artist for the series Phantasy Star. It became a critical and commercial success, and she would lead the graphic design for Phantasy Star 2 and eventually direct Phantasy Star 4. She also supervised the development of 2 Phantasy Star collections and remakes of 1 and 2 for the PS2. Her other works included directing the excellent Magic Knight Rayearth and producing Skies of Arcadia, Deep Fear, and the 7th Dragon series. Reiko Kodama died on May 9th. Her death was undisclosed due to privacy and respect for her family.
Okay. Anything else?
Nope.
All right. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at The Gaming Discourse. Go to our YouTube channel, YouTube/Gaming Discourse. Check out the Asterigos Curse of the Stars review, and we will see you next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.